like to start with explaining why I'm having a double book launch, because normally you only have a single book launch, and many of you were with me a year ago in August when I launched my debut novel, Ride High Pineapple. Well, Brockwell the Brave was actually, I published it at the end of last year, but my hubby Joe had kidney stones and wasn't up to doing a book launch, and I didn't want to do it without him. So that's actually from last year. Land of Britannica is my absolutely new one. It's just come hot off the press. So that's the explanation for both of them. Okay, so what are these books about? Well, I can tell you that they are both written for children aged 9 to 12. They both feature dragons. Hello, June. They both are about family relationships, and in both the main character becomes a hero. So how are they different? Because they're not the same. They are different stories. So Brockwell the Brave is set in Scandinavia in the Viking era. The story revolves around a boy called Brockwell who lives on a dragon farm. His farm raises the dragons to help in the village, so they cart their logs and they're like horses. Brockwell is a gentle boy who loves spending time at the healing hut in the village. He wants to be a doctor. Brockwell is scared of the adult dragons he is expected to care for. So this causes a lot of conflict with his dad, who sees Brockwell as a major disappointment. And natural fact, he likes Brockwell's sister, Brockwell's best friend, Ingrid, better because he thinks she's more of a boy to him than Brockwell is. So later in the story, Brockwell's father does not return from rescuing an injured wild dragon, and Brockwell must decide what he is going to do. Now, I'm not going to tell you what happens because you have to read the story to find out. But there's a magical tooth involved, the village bully, the support of Ingrid, Brockwell's best friend, and there's lots of bravery. So in Land of Britannica, it's about a 12-year-old girl, Brittany, and her parents have split up. Okay, so it's about marriage breakdown. And she's not coping. She wants them to get back together. By way of a glowing green heart under her bed, Brittany is plunged into a magical world, the Land of Britannica, where she quickly finds out that she is the chosen one, as stated in the Book of the Kingdom. It is her destiny to save the cracked green heart that hangs in the sky. Again, I'm not going to tell you what happens, except to say that this story is a tale of good versus evil. And I'll also tell you that Brittany journeys through a land where animals talk, the food is strange, there are dragons and a royal family, and she receives some special powers. And she also gets her own superhero costume. So what inspired me to write these stories? When I started writing a few years ago, I wanted to write a book for each of my children. Ride High Pineapple, I dedicated to my eldest daughter, Melissa. And then the next one I wanted to write was for Nick, who's sitting here videoing me. And Nick is such a delightful character that I wanted to make a child similar to Nick as the main character. I could have just written him an adventure story or a fantasy story, and he would have been happy with that. But because I write about difference and diversity, I decided to focus on boys who are like Nick, who aren't typical male stereotype. Our Nick has always been gentle and kind and walked to his own beat. He's never cared what others have thought of him, and we've always been proud of him for this. But I must emphasise that in the story, Brockwell is a disappointment to his dad. He is not a disappointment to Joe at all. Okay, when I was writing the story, Nick was also really into How to Train Your Dragon. So that, you got two? Cool. So that's what gave me the idea of the dragons, but I tried to make it different from the story. Land of Britannica came about in a different way. Last year I was at ladies' camp, and a lady came up to me and asked me had I written a book that could help her grandchildren. They weren't coping with the parents' marriage breakup. This welled in my heart, and I knew I had to write the book. I already had a story called Land of Talia, and I thought that might work, but when I sent it to my editor, she said no, it didn't work. So I ended up tearing it apart, changing the characters, changing the plot, and the final version came out as Land of Britannica. So the third child I have is Jessica, who's down here, and I'm in the process of writing her story, so you'll have to see next year what that's going to be. It'll be completely different. So a couple extra things about the stories. Brockwell the Brave is a fantasy, but I researched the Viking era, so the setting, food, utensils, housing, clothing are all accurate. I also put in some of the Icelandic language, which is the closest modern day language to Old Norse that the Vikings spoke. The land of Britannica is called an allegory, like the Wizard of Oz, where the main character solves a real world problem in a fantasy world. Each of the characters that Brittany rescues in the land of Britannica are representative of the phases in the grief cycle that children go through when readjusting to their new family situation.